So this next question comes from Roger F. Roger says, "Hi, Austin and Robert. I'm 53 years old with $760,000 in my 403b. I'll have my house paid off in about 3 years, and I currently have no other debt. I plan to retire between 62 and 65. My wife and I make a total of $200,000 per year. I'm thinking about withdrawing enough from my 403b to buy one Bitcoin, even if it means paying the early withdrawal penalty and taxes." Two questions. Number one, do you think this is a smart move, even with a conservative Bitcoin return? And two, could that long-term upside outweigh the penalties and risks, or is this very much just short-term thinking? I appreciate all the value you bring. I love the show so much. Robert, you want to kick this one off?
I think it's a great question, but I wouldn't do it. What I would first do is I would go to the admin for your 403b and say, hey, what kind of autonomy do I have here? Is there a world where I can migrate some of these funds into one of the Bitcoin ETFs like IBIT? That's where I would start, because I would hate to see you sell money, pay the 10% penalty, pay the taxes on it to speculate on Bitcoin. Although I think everyone here that follows along should own Bitcoin, I don't know that it makes sense to pay the penalties and interest to do so. It could weigh out correctly for you. I mean, Bitcoin has returned 944% in the last 5 years, which would far outweigh, any penalties and taxes you would pay. But it just seems a little wrong to do it. So I would first start by checking with your admin, seeing if there's a world you can move some money into one of these ETFs that already exist, so you get the Bitcoin exposure without paying the penalties and the taxes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So if I was in Roger's shoes, I would, one, check out my 403b and see if I can, get some exposure into Bitcoin, which could also maybe mean Coinbase stock. I mean, I don't know. It really depends on what's, offered here by your 403b provider, but just getting some crypto exposure, I would try that first. The second thing I would do is, if Roger here had a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, I would maybe, that should be self-directed. Therefore, I would try and, use some of those funds to buy some Bitcoin. And then if none of those happened, dude, you make $200,000 a year. Like, just dollar cost average into Bitcoin at its current price with your extra funds at the end of every month that you have, and till you have a Bitcoin after maybe 12, 18, 24 months, and congrats, you're now 55 with the whole Bitcoin or whatever, right? I wouldn't overthink it. This is how people get desperate. And when people get desperate, they get silly. And this is a very silly move, because think about it like this, Roger. If you're someone who has an effective tax rate of, let's call it, 20%. I think the average American has an effective tax rate of 23% or something. So let's say you have an effective tax rate of 20%, and you also pay a 10% penalty from your early withdrawal. You are now essentially paying a 30% premium for your Bitcoin. So if it's at $110,000 right now, you would essentially be buying it at $143,000 per Bitcoin, which over long term could still just be great, but just use your after-tax money that hits your bank account, go open a crypto account on Public, and just start the auto invest into Bitcoin that way. Yeah, I just really wouldn't do this. And this goes for anyone that has money in a retirement account, how to think about when you take it out, right? You take it out, not only are you paying taxes on it, but you're also paying a penalty, which means you're essentially taking this money out at a 30% interest rate. That is bonkers. Just keep it invested, grow it over a long period of time, and find money elsewhere in your budget. If that means cutting back, maybe you get a side hustle, maybe you do something differently here to get some exposure to crypto. But with a $200,000 annual household income, just use that money. You're going to be just fine.
100%. And the other thing to look at here, Roger, is, do you have things that are sitting that you could sell? Do you have assets, motorcycles, anything that you're not using? Maybe there's an old boat sitting in the yard that you barely used, or a camper that you could sell for 10, 15, 20,000 to jumpstart your Bitcoin purchases without paying this 30% premium. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat. Everyone should own Bitcoin, but I wouldn't do it in the manner you're considering. That's just my takeaway.
Absolutely agree, Robert. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice.
So before we get into our next question, listen up, folks. Time could be running out to lock in a 6% or higher yield at public.com. You can lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account, but remember, your yield is not locked in until the time of purchase, so you might want to act fast. Lock in a 6% or higher yield with a diversified portfolio of high yield and investment grade corporate bonds only at public.com. public.com/rich habits.
Public.com/rich habits. You guys know it. We love it. Public is the easiest way for anyone to get invested. They have such a wonderful platform. It is just 10 out of 10 experience. And we've helped tens of thousands of people become investors via Public. And we could not be more grateful that you guys are now part of the investor class, growing your wealth over a long period of time. Because Robert and I talk about this a lot, right? We firmly believe the only way anyone will be able to retire, which means stop trading their time for money via a salary or, an hourly wage, whatever trading time for money means to you, is by owning equity in profitable companies like Apple and Amazon and Google and Nvidia and all these companies that are going to grow in value over our lifetimes. Own equity in American capitalism. Go do that. That is the easiest thing anyone can do today to start building wealth. Go open a Roth IRA on Public, buy VOO, and just ride the wave.